Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. You guys know that I'm a huge fan of the X100V. That is my favorite everyday carry camera of all time, and I use it basically every single day. It just lives around me. It's always in my pocket or in my backpack or in my hand. I just take it with me everywhere I go. I made a review about it before. I'm going to post about it here, but the summary is that this camera can do a lot in a very, very little package. It's the perfect mix between quality and size. Now, you could buy the camera and set it on RAW or JPEG and just change your aperture, ISO, and shutter speed and get amazing pictures out of the box without that much setup needed. But there are a couple of really cool advanced features of this camera that aren't for everyone, but if they are for you, then they will make your life a lot more useful. The first three are going to be 3 shortcuts, different buttons you can program to do different things that make navigating the camera a lot easier. The first one is you can actually program the front wheel of the camera to move and change a setting. And what I have this set to is the zoom mode or the digital crop mode. With this camera, you can simulate shooting in 50mm or 75mm as well as the default 35mm that it comes with. This is very handy for if you want to get an extra bit of reach, you want to punch in a little bit without having to swap on a different lens in the front of the camera. Now, it's not perfect. You're not getting a 50mm equivalent depth of field or equivalent compression. You're only getting 50mm equivalent field of view, but it does get the job done, and given how small the camera is, I'm willing to accept that caveat and use the feature as it is. Now, because this is my everyday carry, I sometimes get in different moods and want to shoot in different film simulations. I don't want to always have to dig into the menu. I want to be able to do it very quickly. So I've programmed the front button on this little dial to be able to change my film simulation whenever I want. So when you tap the button, all you have to do is just press up and down to cycle through them, and then you're basically there within a couple of clicks. No menu involvement at all. It's all right from the screen, and within seconds you can change your film simulation to a different one if you'd like. I don't usually shoot in RAW. I'm almost always in JPEG on this camera, just to save space, and because of the volume of the number of shots I'm taking every single day with this camera, I don't really want to have that much storage saved for these daily pictures, if you will. The third is this camera actually has an ND filter. I'm sure you know what an ND filter is, but if you do not, an ND filter is a piece of glass that goes in front of the sensor that darkens the entire image. And this is very important because if you're like me and you like shooting wide open most of the time, then in bright sunlight, the 1/8000th of a shutter might not be enough to get a properly exposed image. So in this case, you want to use an ND filter right in front of your camera. But this camera actually has a built-in ND filter that you can program to a button. I've programmed this button on the back to turn the ND filter on and off. You basically press the dial inwards and that will engage and disengage the ND filter. So with one button press, without going to any menus, you have an automatic ND that just shows up in front of your camera when you need it. Honestly, this feature alone makes this camera worth so much more than it actually is worth. The next feature is this camera actually can shoot 11 frames per second. Now, when you're shooting photography in the street, you want to get that perfect moment, but you don't actually know when it's going to be because, you know, what's happening in the street is very unpredictable. Especially when you have kids or you're shooting a wedding or something like that, you want to get that perfect moment, that perfect 1 second, but it might happen after you take your picture and the card is buffering and you won't be able to take another shot for a while. What I do is I set 11 frames per second on whenever I'm capturing a very fast subject or a moment that I don't know when it's going to happen. The problem with this mode though is you're going to get a lot of pictures and you're only going to want to keep a handful. So what I do is I personally rate each picture that I want to keep in camera, and then when I import them in Lightroom, I just select all the ones that don't have that rating and I delete them. That way I only keep the ones that I intend to keep. 11 frames per second is a lot of frames per second. It's much more than any of us probably even need. Like sports photography cameras like the R3 goes up to 20. But we're talking about just a multiple of 2 and you're there. So this camera is plenty capable of shooting very fast action sports, kids. The next feature is actually a separate thing completely. It's this dongle, this iPhone adapter that connects the SD card from the camera to your iPhone. Now, because I carry this camera with me all the time, most of these pictures end up on Instagram stories, just as a way to like share what I'm doing and what's going on. I need a very fast way to transfer them from the camera to the phone, to Instagram basically. I tried all the wireless options with this camera. I tried the Bluetooth, I tried the Wi-Fi. Nothing really worked every single time. It works sometimes, but I need something that's gonna be super reliable. This dongle allows you to transfer photos from your SD card to your phone super fast. It takes seconds. I'm able to go from a really clean, nice, composed shot in camera to sharing on social media within a matter of half a minute to put it in there, import it, and then share it. Otherwise, the photos end up just kind of collecting on my camera, and then when I want to share them, it's kind of too late. With this SD card reader, you're able to very quickly transfer images to social media without having to offload them to a computer or waste any time. That's it for this video, guys. Those are a couple of things that I do with my X100V almost every day that make life a lot easier for me. I hope you find this content useful, and I'm gonna continue to make content around this camera for a long time. So please subscribe if you're interested in this camera at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.